Hey guys, Matt Gunn here, rcgroups.com. Welcome to another video tutorial. And in this one we're going to go over the Eagle Tree Vector. This is a flight controller. It's an OSD. It is a return to home with GPS navigation. This thing is insurance and fun in the same box. Now I know you don't really get those together very often, but the Vector is all that. So we're going to do things a little differently with this one. I have done nothing but read the instructions, all 88 pages of them, and we're going to install this together. We're going to set it up together. We're going to fly it together. Any trials, any tribulations I have along the way, setup issues, you're going to see them, and we're going to correct them as we go. I've got a few OSDs under my belt, so I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem after reading the instructions. But you never know. I've purposely stayed out of the thread on RC groups related to the Vector. But I did see one, actually I saw many of them fly at the Ready Made RC FPV Fest, and I was sold right then. So we're going to install this Vector in this airframe. Now this is the Skyhunter. This thing is a beast. It is all decked out and ready to ride. I just got to set up the Vector now, and we'll do that together. We got a Ready Made RC 600 line camera up front. We got the GoPro Black here mounted on top. I've got the 400 milliwatt transmitter from RMRC. That's the 2-channel one. I've also got one of Alex IB Crazy's, or Video Aerial Systems, cloverleafs with the balun in it. So this is powered on 4S 5000 for the time being. I may go up to 6600. And we have a Tiger Motor 850 kV, 830 kV 2827. It's a really strong prop. This thing has almost unlimited vertical. And this isn't my first Skyhunter. I've actually got another one here. It's a mapping plane. I took the motor off of it to use on this one. But this bird right here has a gimbal in the bottom of it. So I run this one off of Ardu Pilot and do downward facing camera shots that are always stabilized with the gimbal. So I know the Skyhunter pretty well. It's a good, robust flight platform. It's got a really wide flight envelope, flies very well. I enjoy everything about it, so that's why I wanted to use it for this review. So I think we'll just go ahead and get started here, and I'll move the camera around and reposition everything along the way so we have a clear view. But the first thing to do is to install the Vector. Now, if you haven't read the instructions, like I said, it's 88 pages long. There's quite a lot of stuff related to fixed wing and multi-rotor, so you could probably cut that in half just for the fixed wing, and it's a lot to absorb, but I feel confident that we can get this thing in here and set up well. I've got a couple of RVOSDs under my belt. I've set up everything DJI, so I don't consider this one to be too difficult, but we'll see. So let's get started. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what comes in the box for the Vector. So go ahead and open it here. And we have the main board, which you have all your hookups for your video. You have your receiver in, all your servos, USB, and some other stuff for future updates here. And we have the GPS and mag, which is a compass. This unit right here is going to allow you to navigate via GPS, and if you have the compass initiated, or if you have the compass set up, then you can use that as well. So underneath this plastic cover here, we have the current sensor, nice looking unit, and this also has it's also a power supply unit, 5 volts or 12 volts. So anywhere between in there. This will power your FPV gear. We have a GPS mount that we will not be using because this is not going to be on a multi-rotor, so we can put that to the side. The GPS cable here. We have a couple of wires for, basically everything goes into these nice wiring harnesses and comes off. So there's only minimal plugging to do on the Vector itself. So we have the microphone, the audio as well. We have all your channels here, aileron, throttle, elevator, rudder, and auxiliary. We also have this nice wiring harness here for powering your video transmitter and whatnot. So, and a little mount that we're not going to be using, as well as a few cards. Nice eagle tree, like us on Facebook, already did. And some updates on where to get the manual and the software. Now, we've already downloaded the software onto the computer, so that's one step ahead, and I've already read the manual, but that's it. I haven't done anything else. So our first step is going to be to mount the Vector and the GPS and get the current sensor going. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so we got some real estate to work with on the Skyhunter, but I did not want to put anything out on the wings just for connection issues and stuff like that. So I put everything on the center fuselage. You got your 433 Dragon Link antenna here. Again, we got the 1.2 VTX right here, and we got the video camera up front. So the Vector says in the directions that they want it installed with basically the word TM right there on the center of gravity, and so it's 1/3 of the wing on this plane, so the CG should be about right here. So I think what we'll do is we'll put it inside the fuselage on the deck about right there. And then also I have set up a little piece right here to give just a little bit of distance between the GPS and the VTX and not get too close to the GoPro camera. So I think what we'll do is put the GPS right here, like so. So that should be a good place for it. If I start to get any interference, I can rethink my design, but I have a feeling that this should be a good setup for it. So I think I'll go ahead and start installing it with some foam, get it in place, and then we'll begin to wire everything up. So stand by while I put this stuff in, and we'll see you back in just a minute. Alright, about 30 seconds into it, I just realized that even though the Skyhunter is spacious, it has limited access to where I want to put the Vector. So it's going to be easier for me to go ahead and wire it up first and then put it in. So just save a few minutes of fumbling with wires where I can barely get my hands in there. So like I said before, everything is done on harnesses, so it's minimal harnesses going in, a lot of wires coming out. On the back side of the Vector here, we have your ESC wires your receiver wiring that's going to go to your flight controls and everything like that, as well as the switching on and off of the Vector and changing flight modes and things like that. We also have our audio for the VTX. We have the bus adapter. You can daisy chain in either the airspeed indicator or the GPS. So it's a couple of, doesn't matter how you do it, anything can go into this bus and it's going to understand. So this bus connection goes to the GPS that I have installed here. We also have video inputs for the camera and VTX, as well as power as well. So this thing's ready to run your entire FPV system either on 5 or 3S pack 12 volts. So let's go ahead and install it here, and we'll get it ready to start connecting everything. So I'm using my trusty 3M double-sided adhesive tape here that I've used for everything. It's good stuff. And this is what they recommend as well. So, all right, once again, Eagle Tree recommends you put that TM right there, right on the center of gravity, and it's right about here, so that's where it's going. So let's go ahead and stick it in. All right, the vector is installed and it's not coming out. Let's connect the FPV and GPS equipment. All right, we've got just about everything wired up here on the vector, and I wanted to show you what I've done before I button everything up. So here is the Dragon Link receiver, and right here is where we've hooked it to the vector. Now I left the rudder undone because this doesn't have a rudder. Over here is the RSSI, so I can see what the receiver signal strength is. This goes straight to the vector at the RSSI input. You can barely see it. Let's see if we can zoom in. So there's my throttle hooked up. I will be hooking up the elevator and aileron leads later. Up front we have the camera. A little bit of hot glue there to route it, and the top one goes to the vector camera input, and the bottom one goes to the microphone input. So here's an interesting thing that the vector can do. You can either run 5 volts or 12 volts, and this is how you do it. If you don't connect those red JSTs together and just connect your camera to see that vid TX, there's also one for camera. So if you just connect it to that without connecting these right here, you get 5 volts. If you connect these together, you get 12 volts. Each one is for each item, so you can use any combination: 5-volt camera, 12-volt video transmitter, vice versa, both 5-volt, both 12-volt. As long as you follow the directions and you won't cook anything. So it's pretty foolproof. I like it. And we've got the GPS mounted, and this piece right here along with this wire right here is just extras from the Ready-Made RC video harness that I am not using these to. This is for just connecting the video transmitter and camera without an OSD. So if you want to do that, this is a great harness for it, but I'm not using these two because we're going into the OSD, so I'll just tuck these away and clean it up. So I'm going to, oh yeah, this guy right here, the current sensor, will be mounted inside. I'm going to tuck that in. So all this stuff's going to get mounted here very soon. We'll do that now, and we can go ahead and fire up the transmitter and fire up the, put the power to it and fire up the vector for the first time, and let's see what happens. All right, we've got everything routed, so I'll show you what I did. We got the 433 Dragon Link installed, and everything's hooked up to the vector. This one on the back here is the RSSI. I have the aileron and elevator leads there for the wing. I have the camera wiring routed with some hot glue along the side, and the current sensor is in there ready to hook up to the 4S5000 battery. So the only problem I really had with this was keeping all the wires separated. It's kind of a mess in there, but it's not my worst job. So everything seems to be far enough apart that we shouldn't get any electromagnetic interference from power wires and such. You see the ESC going back there, so there's no wires that really touch it. The Dragon Link antenna is routed away from the motor wires and such, and there's really nothing touching, so that's good. If I did this again, I would probably assemble the wires before I join the halves on the fuselage. So, oh, and I cut a little hole here. You can barely see it, but I cut a little hole and taped it so I can stick the USB through easily, because there's, again, whoops, there's the USB, and there's not a lot of room to plug it in. So it's easier to just cut a hole and push it through. So what I'll do is go ahead and hook this up to the computer and get some initial settings to what I think they should be. We'll get the OSD set up. I'll show you the on-screen display, and we'll do some computer screenshots or video of the computer screen so you can see the interface for the software. And I'll also show a feed of the OSD recorded on my Ready-Made RC DVR 1000. So stand by. Okay, we have the Vector hooked up to the computer, and it's blinking to let us know that it has USB power. And let's go ahead and open the Vector software. And the most important thing I've done is taken the propeller off the motor, because you don't want it spinning up when you do your receiver check. So the first thing we'll do is choose the airframe. Now it defaults to fixed wing, so I'm not going to have to hit apply. But what you would do is you would choose traditional fixed wing or whatever your airframe is, and then hit apply down here. Now you have Elevon fixed wing, which is flying wing. You have your V-tail fixed wing. You also have all of your multi-rotor configurations over here. So if you choose one, you would hit apply, then you'd have to go into the OSD and accept it for the outputs to work. So we'll go back to overview here, and the first thing we'll do is run the receiver analysis wizard. Now this is going to recognize your receiver signal strength. It's going to understand your control inputs, and anytime that you fly the airplane and change the trim on the aircraft so it flies level, you're going to want to run this again. So let's go ahead and run it. And I'm going to first turn on my 9 CAP with the Dragon Link, and I'm also going to plug in the 4S battery pack to the Skyhunter. Alright, so we're plugged in. Run receiver analysis wizard, and it basically says disconnect the motors or propellers before you begin. Hit next. Choose the desired system units below, English. Choose your receiver type, standard. Choose the function of the auxiliary input of the Vector receiver harness. So you have two modes. You have your mode and your sub-mode. Your auxiliary input function can run any number of items, and in this case we're using it to run a secondary switch, so we can change to a different mode of flight other than the 3 available on a single switch, and we'll go over that shortly. So sub-mode it is, and choose how it detects fail-safe. We're choosing throttle position. I've already set up the fail-safe throttle position on the Futaba transmitter, and if it turns off, it'll go to the predetermined point, and we'll set that up right now. Okay, turn your transmitter off and click next once it's turned off. Alright, it's off. We'll hit next, and turn your transmitter back on. Alright, we're back on, and hit next. Move your aileron stick all the way to the left and hold it there while you click next. All the way to the left, and we'll hit next. Move your elevator stick all the way back and climb. Alright, we did that, and now we'll hit next. Move your rudder stick all the way left and hold it there while you click next. We don't have a rudder on this plane, but I'm just going to do it anyway. Next. Center your sticks Set your throttle to your typical cruise flight position. If you don't know the cruise position, you can set the midpoint for now. Click Next when done. All right, so here we go. That's my throttle mid position right there. And we'll hit Next. Move your throttle stick to typical climbing or high-speed flying. That's full throttle for me. All right, full throttle it is. Next. Move your throttle all the way down. Done. Next. The wizard is complete. Finish. All right, so if you look at the RSSI here, it shows 98 to 100%. Let's go ahead and turn the transmitter off and watch it drop to 0. There we are. And it says fail-safe detected, yes. Turn it back on. Fail-safe off, and RSSI back up to 98%. This looks great. Everything looks good to go. You can see the stick movements over here working like they're supposed to. And we don't have rudder, so there's no signal. Let's move on to the next section. The Vector has a number of flight modes. They differ between platforms, so you're not going to have the same flight modes with a multi-rotor that you are with a fixed wing. So right down here is where you set them all. And basically you want to set up a 3-position switch and use that for your 3 main flight modes. And then you can also set up another 3-position switch as a sub-mode. So you can have a total of 5, not 6, because your last switch position on your mode switch, your main switches, has to be a way to move on to the next one. So what I'm saying is, if that doesn't really make sense, here we have stabilizer off. That's for my takeoff and landing. Then center position, if I move to it now, is 2D and hold. Now that means kind of fly-by-wire. It will always self-right, and it's always going to hold its compass heading, and it's also going to hold its altitude. Now you can do 2D without compass heading and altitude, and I chose to do that sort of hold. And then if you move on to the 3rd position here, this basically says move over to the next switch position. And then once you're in that 2nd switch sub-mode, you can just move back and forth. So that's how that works. And then there's a bunch of different options within each. You can use not use, 2D no hold, 2D plus hold, loiter, return to home, gyro stabilize. Now gyro stabilize, I would say, is a midpoint between no stabilization and 2D stabilizations. 2D is always self-righting. Gyro stabilize is sort of in between. And I was talking to Bill at Eagletree, and he said that you can use the gyro stabilize for takeoff and landing. It's just going to stabilize the platform, quote unquote, a little bit. But I chose not to use it. I'm just going to use, I'm using stabilizer off for this one, which is au naturel, just me flying the sticks, no vector input whatsoever. So I hope that helps explain how the switches are set up and what they do. So I think we're just about ready to go fly. Let's configure the safety mode next. So what we'll do, I've already configured it, and it says that the status is okay. And it says that we're in fail-safe now because I've got it set to the return to home. So if I take that off, there, it's off. So if we go into configure safety mode, you have a number of options here. Your basic safety mode setting is return to home. We can actually do land, and make sure if you ever do land that you're somewhere open that the plane won't hit, because once it gets on its glide slope, it's going to just fly itself into the ground, basically, on a nice gentle glide slope. So unless you have a wide open area, I would suggest not using that. So we use return to home. We can change our altitude to fly. Return to home, I do 300 feet. your maximum altitude and distance. This is sort of a virtual fence for height and distance. And then your advanced safety mode, your minimum ground speed. This is great for if you're coming home and there's high wind. So you can set it to a specific mile per hour and it'll GPS read the mile per hour that it won't go below. So if you are fighting a wind, you've only got your throttle set up to half throttle and the wind's really blowing and you're not making any headway, this will make sure that it's not dipping below the preset mile per hour. As 0, that means it's off. You know, you got your obvious items here to adjust your climb rate, your descent rate, low altitude return to home. So if you fly off the side of a mountain or if you fly off the side of a large hill and you fly below the launch point, this will climb it back up. And if you do return to home. The only problem with that is that it could spin the prop up on the bench. So I keep it off. Even though I do fly from the side of a hill, a large valley, I rarely go below it. So I keep that off for safety's sake. Home altitude mode, you can basically set. So you fly home at a certain distance of whatever you want, and then when you get within a certain distance of your home, it'll drop down or climb up to another altitude. So let's just say you're at 400 feet, because that's what you should always be at, and you initiate return to home, it'll fly home at 400 feet, and then at a few hundred feet out, it's going to drop down to your secondary return to home altitude that it's going to circle at. So that's a pretty cool feature. I have it disabled right now, I just don't need it. And that's pretty much it. You got your receiver safety settings, which I already have set up, so we're not using that. So we're ready to fly. I'm going to adjust the compass at the field. I am using it. So we'll adjust the compass settings at the field. We will keep the, let's see what we got here. No, we don't want to save our settings. So again, we'll keep the gain and responsiveness as it is out the box. We'll do the compass calibration at the field, and the RC configuration, same page as the overview here. So, but you've got some extra stuff, you know, to the type and all that sort of items that you set up in the receiver wizard. So basically your overview kind of encompasses everything on these tabs, but not in their entirety. And the last thing that we did not show, but I don't really need to do right now, is your OSD setup. And I'm perfectly fine with how I have it set up here. You can change absolutely anything and move it all around. So there's plenty of room for customization. I personally like the more is better approach. I want all the information in front of me in real time, and then I can choose to look at what I want. I can see straight through it and see all the great scenery out there as well, and then I always have the information to view. So some people like less is more. Some people like you know, huge data streams, and all that can be adjusted on the ground through this, or you can set up one of your 3-position or 2-position switches to turn off some of this information in flight, so you have just an all-natural view, or you can move between different setups if you want. So it's a pretty cool setup. There's lots of adjustability, and you can change your screen colors and whatnot as well, and your font sizes and everything under the sun. So there's lots of adjustability, but for the sake of getting out and flying, we've got it set up. So let's take it out to the field and take it for a spin. All right, we're here at the flying spot. This is a beautiful location overlooking a valley. We've got ample room to fly here. The winds are just out of the west at probably 5 miles an hour, give or take a few. So it's going to be a decent flight today for our Maiden. We've got the Skyhunter all set up. I did the magnetometer calibration and the compass calibration, so we're good to go on that. It's really easy to do. All you do is flip your transmitter toggle switch for modes 7 times. So it's a 3-position switch. You go from one end to the other, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then that enters the calibration mode, to which you hit it once more, toggle once more, and then begin to do your dance, if you will, where you spin the model around 360 degrees on its axes, facing you, and then facing down, nose down. You spin it 360. So we're all calibrated. I think we're good to go. We got the ground station set up. I'll be recording the flight, but for the first flight, no stabilization. We're just going to get her dialed in and trimmed and all that good stuff. It should be a good flight, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, our maiden flight was a success. I don't really have a single complaint except for I set my return to home cruise too low. And you can see in the video, I'll try to put it up on screen, that while in loiter and circling above and return to home with the wind, she was stalling. She was actually falling out of the sky and recovering, falling out of the sky and recovering. My cruise was just under half throttle, It was only like 3 or 4 amps, and I would say that's because I'm running a big prop and a somewhat low kV motor, so I have lots of thrust, but I don't have the RPMs where I thought they would be. Not a problem at all. I'll just go ahead and up the cruise just a little bit and we'll fly again. So let's go ahead and call it a day, and we'll go back and get some initial impressions on what I thought, as well as go ahead and try to set up some waypoint navigation and explore some more features of the Vector.